Hi, I'm Eddie Schwartz. I'm Chief Security Officer for RSA, the security division of EMC. And what I want to talk to you about today is how big data is transforming information security. There's really four areas, I guess, that really matter relative to this space. The first area is security management. Second area is fraud. Third, I'm going to mention, is governance, risk, and compliance. And the fourth is identity management. Let's talk for a minute about security management. Why is big data important? Well, in the old days, we used to think that logs and firewall information and AV was enough to protect our networks. But we know that that information just isn't panning out for us. Signature-based technologies are not finding the advanced threats. We know that a lot of the perimeter-based technologies are failing to stop the advanced attackers. So we need to do things like build data warehouses that have a lot more data and a lot more different types of data. Full packet data, data from asset management systems, from business systems, bring it all together. Use technologies like Hadoop, Apache, open source data, Lucene, and other types of technologies. And this is going to require us to change the way we think about security management, the way we store the data, the way we normalize and index it, and the way we perform analytics on it. So big data is transforming security management, and if you're in information security, you have to start thinking about that. You have to start thinking about how you build these architectures, how you fund them, how you plan for it, the skills you're going to have, working an incident response team, and it's a big deal, and that's one of the four areas. The second area is fraud. Think about your website. How much have you invested in a website? Maybe you have thousands of web pages if you're an online store or you're running a business. And the traditional approach to web security is something like a web application firewall, or maybe you're trying to write rules to chase after criminal activity on your website. It's really tough to deal with that because you're constantly chasing after new activity on behalf of the criminals. Well, what if instead of doing it that way, where you're trying to figure out what bad is, you try to figure out what good looks like? In the thousands and thousands of visitors to your website, there are click streams of activity that define, for example, good browsing behavior, good behavior in the checkout process, good behavior in a shopping cart or other types of processes that might be good on your website. And so once you profile that behavior, you can also look for things like standard deviations from that behavior to see problems like man-in-the-middle attack, man-in-the-browser attacks, other types of attacks that frankly we don't even know about today that might be new tomorrow. Big data allows us to do that. We can gather all this information over time, profile what constitutes normal, and then just start looking for deviations from that, deviations that maybe we understand pretty well today, but things that'll come up tomorrow that maybe we don't understand at all. A third area is in identity management. Right now we think about username, password, maybe two-factor authentication, but we know all of those can be broken, and all of those have risks associated with them. What if added to that, we added the idea that we need to add factors like geolocation, MAC address, time of day, all of these factors that would contribute to whether or not an authentication event is allowed. So the idea of adding risk-based authentication and that type of decision-making process to any authentication event, whether it's from a mobile device, from cloud-based authentication, from standard username and password, or from a token-based authentication, anything like that. So it really is about transforming, again, the authentication event to a big data event where you're taking in lots and lots of factors. And this is, again, something that you have to plan for and build towards. The last piece is governance, risk, and compliance, right? We all think of that as well. How do I manage security controls and do patch management? That's somewhat interesting, but the real interesting part is how do you prioritize the work of your security team? How do you focus on the assets that really matter, identify them, and then get that information as an intelligence feed to all the other things I just talked about, right? Patch the systems now that really matter to your business or to your government agency. Focus incident response on those systems that matter both to you and the people that are attacking you in some way. Those are the things you want to get people to chase after. Those are the things you want people's hair on fire about, not necessarily asking them to patch vulnerabilities in a bunch of systems that nobody really cares about. So governance, risk, and compliance is going to transform with big data to help you understand which systems are important, which classes of users are important to you, and which ones need to be the highest priority in terms of asset management, in terms of investigations, in terms of everything that you're doing to try to both manage security controls and also inform your systems to pay more attention to them in the incident response process. So this was just a little talk to help you think a little bit about big data in the security space and big data and how it's going to change your lives a bit in security. And I hope this was helpful. This was Eddie Schwartz from RSA, and thanks a lot for listening.